Today we're going to learn all about what's involved when a Briarwood cottage resident needs to or wants to move to an apartment. And who better to answer all those questions than Daria, who is our Director of Resident Services. So Daria's going to answer all the questions that I've picked up from residents.
Thanks for having me, DA.
So, when does a resident usually decide, a cottage resident decide, I'd like to move to an apartment?
It varies for each person. For some people, it's crystal clear when they need to move, and they might have had a winter in the cottage that felt like it was more than they really wanted to handle. Because of course in the cottage people are handling their grocery shopping or get groceries acquired for them by someone, and they're going out to a mailbox or arranging for someone to pick up their mail. There's various things that are going on when people are part of living in a cottage that they may at some point not want to have to deal with. And so as people see those changes coming in themselves, they may be more interested in an apartment.
Is there a list? Isn't there a list?
Mm-hmm. There is a list, and similar to the priority list, which people usually go on before they come to Briarwood. They might indicate they have an interest in coming to Briarwood, they pay a deposit, and then they're on the priority list. And that means that the sales department is calling them, or not usually calling, usually a letter goes out, to let them know that something is available. So, in a similar way, when people in the cottages are thinking, I may want to make a move at some point in the future, it's a good thing to get their name on the list. And that's called an internal move list. I keep that list, but I'm not the only person. People in the sales department are aware of it as well. And when people's name is on that list, it's their name and what they think they might want to move into. It doesn't have to be super clear. It may be that they know they want a 2-bedroom apartment in the Birches, or it may be that they would like a 1-bedroom apartment anywhere, or they're not sure. And what goes on in addition on that list is a date that they indicated their interest. So when an apartment becomes available, we then take a look at that list and see who has priority based on their having signed up first. And sometimes we know somebody doesn't really want to be called every time an apartment is available. They might say, don't call me, I'll call you. Right. But short of that, then I go down the list and call people until I find somebody that's interested in looking at an available apartment. And then that resident or residents come and we take a look at it. And if they decide that they want it, then there's usually about a 30-day period at the time they make the decision until they're responsible to start paying for the new unit. That's unless there's something that holds up the process and requires more work to be done on the apartment for the person to be ready.
And that's 30 days that they have to get out of their cottage.
Yes. So for some people, recently there was an apartment available, and I called a number of people, and one couple said, well, we were thinking we'd like to move at such and such a time, but really things have been held up and we need some more time. We want to be doing some more downsizing before we move. So we're going to put that off a little bit. What that means is they don't go to the bottom of the list. They stay at the same point on the list, and then the next time something is available, I take it from the top and go down. So people can say no a number of times. Mm-hmm. There's no limit. Yeah, that's not a problem at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so tell us about the financial arrangements, because I think everybody's interested in that. There's a difference.
Mm-hmm. There is. So when people move to an apartment, they are no longer responsible to pay for utilities because that's included in the monthly fee. And also the approximate equivalent of 1 meal a day as many people know, previously it was always looked at as one meal a day and the best value would be dinner. But now people have a lot more flexibility, and it's just a certain amount that's put in a person's fund each month. So, but there is more if you're living in an apartment. And that's one of the advantages is people don't have to be doing as much grocery shopping and meal planning because they have that meal each day in the dining room or the cafe or what have you, however they want to
Yeah,
break it up.
that's good.
Mhm.
And then isn't there a differential between the prices?
Yes. So there's a variety of prices along with a variety of sizes of apartments. In addition, and that's speaking about monthly fees, in addition, if someone has paid an entrance, well, everybody will have paid an entrance fee when they moved into a cottage, the entrance fee for the apartment they're moving into might be more than the value of the entrance fee they've already paid. And so for many or maybe most people, there is an increase in the amount of entrance fee they need to pay if they move into an apartment. That is not always the case, it depends on the size. For the smaller size apartments, the entrance fee value may more than cover the entrance fee value of a smaller apartment. Does that make sense?
Yes, and it's the cottage entrance fee. It's not depreciated by how many years you've lived there or anything.
It's the value of the entrance fee. Yes, it's the current value of the entrance fee versus the entrance fee of the apartment as it is. So for instance, sometimes people are hesitating to move and say in the fall time, and Alice or others in the sales department might say, well, you know, the entrance fee on this apartment will be a little higher as it goes up usually each year, the monthly fee and the entrance fees. So it can be good for people to make a move as early as they feel comfortable because the difference in entrance fee is less, if you follow me. I also want to say a little bit in reference to your first question, or one of your first questions about why people might decide to move. And perhaps it's obvious, but besides that perhaps somebody stops driving and they might want to move. Now, in regard to driving, there are people that choose to keep living in the cottage even after they've stopped driving. That's perfectly fine. But for many people, that doesn't work as well, depending on their lifestyle.
Yes.
And then in addition, sometimes people have health changes or physical ability changes. So they find that moving to an apartment just makes life a little easier, being closer to more of the things that are happening at the kind of hub of the community. And there's more dinners and mail is available inside the building, those kinds of things.
And what if they need assisted living?
Okay. So, first of all, if somebody were to move to an independent level apartment and they push their emergency button, someone would come from assisted living if available, or they would send somebody. If somebody needs more help than that, and that's just emergency help. If somebody needs more frequent help, particularly if they need help with personal care, then they would be looking more at either a move to assisted living or a move to some apartments we have that are near assisted living. And those apartments can be a nice move because someone can move there at an independent level, but then as their needs change, assisted living services can be brought to those apartments. We have a certain limited amount of 630 square foot apartments near assisted living, to which we can bring assisted living services in most cases, not in every case, because it depends a little bit how close the apartment is to the center of assisted living and how much assistance the person needs as to whether it's really feasible or not. So we need to talk about that in individual cases. But assisted living is usually brought about by somebody needing some help with personal care, or particularly when the person needs some help with care that's intermittent through the day. So say if I lived in a cottage and I developed a difficulty getting up out of a chair. And so when I need to get up and go to the bathroom, I need some assistance. And of course, that's hard to schedule. So that can mean that either the person then needs to have somebody living with them, which some people choose to do. There are aides that will be live-in aides for people. Or they choose to have somebody that's there throughout many hours of the day that cover their needs. Or they might want to move to assisted living because then they have the privacy of their own apartment and they have help that can come in intermittently as they need it.
That's very helpful, very helpful. And so they have nowadays the alternatives of laurels, birches, elms, and then the possible divisions in elms for assisted living.
And Evergreen's memory care.
Oh, and evergreens.
So Evergreen's memory care is new, and it's situated above the fitness center, and is a very nice environment for people who have challenges in the area of memory, but particularly if they are very physically able to get around, so need a space that has some supervision of their needs so that they're in a safe environment and secure environment. So that's what Evergreens was designed to be, and bringing that into our community was a very important addition.
And they might have to be on a waiting list if it's full, right?
As we do this interview, for instance, Evergreens is full, so we have a waiting list, and there is priority for people within the community before we go to people outside of the community. Similar for any apartments that are available in assisted living or independent living. Any apartments are offered to people on the internal move list or the assisted living waiting list who are Briarwood residents before we turn to people who are interested in moving here from outside the community.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So, when they've made the decision and figured out the financial part and everything's ready, can you recommend moving people or people to help them downsize and so on?
Yes. So we have relationships, particularly with one company, Generations on the Move, which is owned by Kim McCarthy. Many people have used that company. There are also others that do a similar service. They're called move managers, professional move managers. And those businesses can help people with sorting out what they need to get rid of. They can even book the movers, do the move, unpack everything, and have it pretty much ready to move in and sleep in the bed and have the towels hung, and the silverware put away. So that can be a very nice service. Those services can also be done a la carte, in terms of maybe a person just wants a business like that to oversee the actual move, but they want to pack things up themselves or do the downsizing themselves. So an individual customer can turn to that business and decide how much they want to invest in that process and get as much help as they want.
And people probably do need help. It's very hard to downsize and make decisions and get everything done in 30 days.
Yes. So hopefully people have been thinking about it before, but even some people have not, and it moves along more. Sometimes my practice has been, if I know that somebody's going to be moving out of an apartment, or apartment's going to be vacated for some reason, I sometimes start calling people on the list so we line up. It gives people a little bit more notice than the 30 days. But really people need to be thinking about it as their needs begin to point to a move. And so they don't have to jam it all into 30 days. But there is help available. And for some people, their families are more than willing or able to do it. Not for everyone. Some people's families are otherwise occupied or too far away. But families help sometimes, friends help sometimes, and moving companies help sometimes.
That sounds great. All right, could we go back to elms a little bit, and could you tell us how we who don't live there can figure out where the independent people live and where the assisted living people live.
Sure. Yes, many people aren't aware of that. Some people think the Elms is all assisted living. On the first floor of the Elms are apartments that are all for independent living.
The whole first floor.
Correct.
Right.
On the second floor, about half of the second floor is the assisted living area. And everybody who moves to that area then is part of the assisted living program. On the other half of the second floor are these apartments that I mentioned a little earlier that are independent level apartments near assisted living, which can be used totally for independent living or can on occasion have assisted living services brought to them if the person's needs kind of match well with what assisted living can offer.
That's great.
We also have people in the independent living, in cottages or independent living apartments anywhere, who have private pay help, who help them. So they really may be perhaps at an assisted living level of care, but they're getting private pay help and living in an independent level apartment. So that's always an option. It depends on what works best. It's nice to have a variety of options depending on each individual's needs and their personal resources.
And speaking of outside help, supposing somebody doesn't want to move to an apartment but does need a little help at home, can you give counsel on whom to employ, and are there ones that Briarwood likes a lot and you can get names to call?
Yes, that's part of my job, is to be aware of what companies we would recommend and who provide different kinds of services. One particular company does provide live-ins live-ins meaning somebody moves into the place, so you don't have shifts of people coming in and out. And we have a number of those usually at any point in time on the campus where people have somebody living with them.
Yes.
And then there are also other options like somebody being 10 or 12 hours a day or 2 hours a day. We also sometimes are blessed, and currently we are, to have someone available who does task-oriented things and will come in and out of people's cottages or apartments to help with things intermittently. And we're really lucky to have that. But that's a freelancing person. So it depends on what's going on in the world of freelancers, I call them, or independent contractors, as to what resources we can offer. But I try to keep track of those and what people might be available, for instance, to just come in the morning and
in the night.
And in the night, good point. And to come in and give people help with perhaps just a shower.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've answered so many questions, Daria, and I'm so pleased that you could come and do this.
I'm pleased, thanks for asking me, and I'm pleased to be able to do it. I think it's important information for people to be aware of. And I think in closing, I would just like to add, if you're thinking about it, that you think you might want to be moving to an apartment in the future, it doesn't hurt to put your name on the internal move list. And it can be, don't call me, we'll call you. You know, it's the resident saying to the staff, don't call me, I'll call you when I get close. But you're on the list. And it just gives you priority later on when your needs become more pressing. So just give that a thought. And know that we won't annoy you, but on the other hand, that we're happy. I'm always happy to call people and talk to them and say, hey, we have an apartment available. I'm wondering if you might be interested. I'm thinking probably not, since we didn't talk too long ago. But it's nice to have a chance to talk.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.